So we're up to week 3 of Rise Above It, and we're going to be on the third commandment. It's a very simple one that I'm sure you've heard before. Exodus chapter 20, verses 8 to 11 says, "Remember the Sabbath day by keeping it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work, but the seventh day is a Sabbath to the Lord your God. On it you shall not do any work, neither you nor your son or daughter, nor your male or female servant, nor your animals, nor any foreigner residing in your towns. For in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them. But he rested on the seventh day. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy." If the Lord can create the entire universe in 6 days, you can be done all your work in 6 days too. Is kind of the crux there, right? You can be done too. And I think it helps for this commandment to have a little bit of Jewish history around what they saw the Sabbath as. Because for them, Sabbath began on a Friday night at sunset, and it went all the way through Saturday. Jewish people who observe Sabbath, Saturday is a day of rest. And you don't work at all. But proper understanding of the Sabbath is getting the idea that it's not just not doing your occupation. It's not doing any work. And work in the Jewish context here was defined as any activity that was necessary in the building of the tabernacle. Okay, so first you might think, well, all right, I'm not going to take any wood and plate it with gold and make a box out of it. Okay, I can not make a tabernacle for a day, sure. But then you start going through all the things that would be done in the building and construction of the tabernacle. The tapestry has to be made, so there's no sewing. The table of showbread has bread on it, so you can't make any bread, you can't do any cooking. The altar has a fire. No fires can be made then, so no barbecues, right? Start going through these things, and it starts to get a little more difficult as you realize all the things that would have been involved with making a tabernacle. No tying, no tearing, no cutting. And what gets to be the tricky one is no carrying. You can't carry things, because to make a tabernacle, you got to pick something up and move it from one spot to another. So you start to get the idea that thou shalt not do any work and honor the Sabbath. It encompasses a lot of stuff. You can do things within your own property. So that does help. So you could carry things around your house, and yes, you could make a fire at your house. But outside of that property, you are limited. You are limited. So the modern world, well, we don't really pay a whole lot of attention to these rules anymore. We used to. I bet all of us, except for maybe Zach and Ellen, have stories of, well, when I was a kid, Sundays used to be like, stores were closed, you didn't do anything. Like, my parents weren't hardcore, thou shalt not do anything Sunday people. But I do remember Mom saying, no, you can't go and play with friends outside the house. Like, we could play with our siblings and do stuff on the property, but they really didn't want us knocking on other people's doors and say, hey, can so-and-so come out and play? No, Sunday is a family day. That was kind of how they started. Eventually we wore them down and expanded on it, but that's life on Sundays. And it helped that, yes, even in the States, shops were closed on Sundays. There wasn't a whole lot of activity. So it made it, the commandment still felt like it was in effect to a certain extent. We've lost that, right? We've lost a lot of that. And the world, I don't know if they're starting to take notice, but I think there are some people who are starting to realize that we've lost something in society by being go 7 days a week. Even executives are starting to realize that there is value in having a day off, a day of downtime. I found this one article where this woman, Helen, is an executive in the educational field. And she says that she gets 500 emails a day. A day. So this journalist is asking her, well, how do you do that? How do you do 500 emails a day? And she's like, I don't read any of them. Simple. I don't read any of them. She says, frankly, if I did, I wouldn't really be doing my job. My job is to think about the future of education in my country. These days, given the work I do, it isn't a question of obtaining information. Rather, the important question is how to push information away so that I don't suffer from information overload. I need to have time to think. Right. Now, she later says, well, these emails don't just go unanswered. She has an assistant who plugs away at these things, and the tough ones, she'll work with him on. Nevertheless, that's a lot of emails, and she gets the fact that it's important to push stuff away. You can't just constantly be putting stuff in. The more she elaborated on it, she was talking about how the creative process requires downtime. It requires you to do this thing we abhor these days, which is called being bored. How many times do we, go on a walk? We've got headphones on. Doing dishes, we've got a video on. Go to the gym, got headphones on. We go on the train, in the cafe. There's always something. And as many of you know, I was riding on the motorcycle on Monday this week, and it's amazing, without having any music or anything else going on, just me on a bike, it's like, wow, ideas start coming into my head. It's like, oh, look at what happens when I stop stuffing myself full of input. Oh, look at that. I had an idea about, I could write about this. I could do this, boom, boom, boom. Oh, this is actually really useful to kind of be bored, to kind of shut things down. And that's what we all need to do. We need to kind of get out of this manic behavior of keep asking for more things to come in. Because to be creative, you've got to have a bit of a different state of mind. You've got to be able to function in a different way. So, contemporary society, right? We have lots of opportunity to be busy, but a lot of this busyness that we do has very little substance, right? It's not really helping us along the way. So the secret of being successful is learning how to be less busy, right? There's a story about Michelangelo. 500 years ago, right? He has been commissioned to do the statue of David. 500 years ago. It's 1466. Well, it's almost 600 years ago. And so he gets a big chunk of marble, gets it from the quarry, has it brought out, and he starts to work on it, but he only gets as far as kind of marking out the legs and some of the features of the lower body. He doesn't get real far of it. But then, for reasons that are lost to history, he abandons the project for 25 years. For 25 years, that block of marble stood there at this cathedral, just with some markings on it. After that point, somebody said, hey man, you need to get to work on this. It's been a while. You've had a break. Get going. So he agrees. He was commissioned to do this. I actually do have to finish this project. And so the story goes that Michelangelo is there, standing and sitting in front of this block of marble, and little progress is happening. And the folks come up to him and say, what are you doing? He says, I'm working. I'm working. And the idea is that, the creative process takes some time to sit there and do some nothing and just be with it and let the ideas come in. Let the angel within, the David within it take shape before he starts chipping away at it. He says, I saw the angel in the marble and carved until I set him free. So the point of these examples is simply just to show that sometimes less is more. Sometimes it's worthwhile to do some nothing, to sit there and just not be putting stuff in your head. But it's becoming very difficult in our world today to do that. We don't encourage people to do nothing. The new church has this whole doctrine of usefulness, right? You got to be useful, you got to be productive, and well, yeah, Lord does want us to be useful, but He also knows that in order to be useful, we got to sometimes step back and do some nothing. Swedenborg writes about it in terms of recreation is this two-part word, recreation. So you're recreating yourself. And part of what the Sabbath day is that process of recreating yourself. Don't become victims of information overload. Leave some time for excursions into your inner world. So doing nothing can actually be good for your mental health. But what I appreciate about this commandment in this week is that when I looked at the order of service, whatever I did with it, when I looked at the actual recitation, there's more to it than just the Sabbath and keep it holy, right? There's a lot more it says in there. It says about, not only doing work, but not you, your son, your daughter, your servants, animals, foreigners, all right? So you have all that. None of that's going to do any work. And when you get into the writings, Secrets of Heaven describes what that's all about. He says, this is 8890 if you're following along, you shall not do any work, you nor your son, nor your daughter, your male slave, nor your female slave, nor your beast, nor your sojourner who's within your gates. Means that at that time heaven and its blessedness are present in every single part of a person, inwardly and outwardly. This is clear from the meaning of not doing any work as rest and peace. Thus heaven, when a person is in heaven, he is free from all apprehensiveness, uneasiness, and anxiety, and when he's free from these, blessedness is his. And what it does in that second paragraph is it goes through all these, the son, the daughter, and basically saying that all of that means that every part of you shall be free. Your inner self, your outer self, the things that you do, every part of you from top to bottom, inner to outer, is going to be free from apprehensiveness, uneasiness, anxiety, and living in a state of heaven. So that's what the Sabbath is supposed to be. Yes, it's a day of divine instruction, but it's a day of casting away all the worries of life. You got some doctor's appointments. You're not going to worry about that right now. Oh, you've got some work to do this week. You know what? Put that aside. Forget about that for today. Oh, you've got some packing to do or some moving stuff. You know what? Put that aside. Worry about that on another day. Oh, your kids are driving you crazy. You know what? They'll be fine. Today is a day of rest. Today is a day of the Lord's instruction. Today is the day the Lord says, I created the entire universe in 6 days. Taking a day off, you can too. And I like the tie-in to the creation story. All right, for in 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea and all that's within them, but he rested on the seventh day. And we don't often think about this commandment in relation to the creation story. At least I don't. Maybe you do. I don't. But there is this connection here. There is this connection here. The Lord blesses the seventh day. And note about it here, who's doing the work in the creation story? Because it's, and God said, there shall be light. Who's doing the work? The Lord is. All right? And God said there should be waters above and there should be waters below. And it was good. Who's doing the work? The Lord is. And I think this is actually an interesting little way to sit on this and to churn on it, because it's very easy for us to get sucked into all the work that we're doing and taking credit for it. And the Lord's saying, you know what? in your creative processes. I'm trying to take you from being kind of a worldly, superficial person. I'm trying to make you into a spiritual person. I'm going to do the work. I'm going to create the light. I'm going to create the waters above. I'm going to create the vegetation and the birds and the beasts and so on, right? I'm going to create all these things. All you've got to do is just cooperate. All you've got to do is just cooperate with me. Go along with it. It's not that hard. I'm doing the work. And so when I tell you on the seventh day, take a rest. Because you know what? I'm going to do the work. I'm going to do it. And I don't think we often have this perspective. It's like we think, oh, if I don't do all the work, nothing's going to get done. The Lord says, no. I will create the light. I will create the vegetation. I am the creator. You are the createe. Take it easy. Take it easy. Things will still get done if you take a rest on the Sabbath. Things will actually might even get done better if you take a rest on the Sabbath. And I think that can be hard for our minds to comprehend. Go, wait, I got to get more things done. No. I created a Sabbath day. Keep it holy. It's a day for divine instruction. It's a day for doing less, not more. It's a day for family. It's a day for thinking about spirituality, because the other 6 days while all the other work's happening, you need some time to reflect on that. Right? How often, fire is a good example in this story. How often do we have fire in our life? Well, fire is a symbol for love. So fire can be the love that you create or the love that God creates. And sometimes during the week, we might be creating some anger, which is love that we create, right? It's a fire of hatred and stuff and impatience and things like that. I was very impatient earlier this week driving through Mortdale. Very impatient. Felt all sorts of fire being created as people were slowly crossing the street. Sundays are good days to reflect on those things and say, all right, no work. All right, put those things aside. Let the Lord do His job. Be patient. Reflect on all the things that have happened throughout the week of, critical, impatient, mean, or, not paying attention to somebody else's feelings. All those things that we do. You're not going to think about where you've needed improvement from the things you've done if you don't have a time to be quiet. We need those quiet times to say, oh, well, let's reflect on what's happened. Those thoughts aren't going to come in. And to me, that's kind of the whole point of acknowledging the Sabbath. Because as we go, what we don't realize is that we're blocking out things. And sometimes, we do make ourselves busy to do that on purpose, right? We're feeling down in the dumps, so we binge on some Netflix or YouTube or whatever. We keep ourselves busy to block out the negative thoughts. But the Lord's saying, you actually need to let those blockades down to see the things that you need to do better at. To have some chance to look back on your week or your month, whatever, and say, oh, how did that go? Where could I have done better? Where could I have been a little bit nicer? Oh, gee, I really did this person wrong. I probably owe them an apology. I wrote some things on social media that I shouldn't have. Maybe I owe an apology. I assumed too much. This is part of the point of the Sabbath. As we tone down the busyness, we can reflect on these things and we can make things better for our lives. So as you go forward in this week and you think about keeping the Sabbath or acknowledging the Sabbath and keeping it holy, try to take the day to not worry. Get rid of the apprehension, get rid of the anxiety. Don't worry about your doctor's appointments. Don't worry about your work. Take this day to just kind of enjoy it. Let the Lord come to you. Let the ideas flow in. Let the creative stuff come to you. And I think you'll find that as a result, the next 6 days will be more productive than if you'd done it the other way around. Amen.